What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today we want to talk about a potential wide receiver that the Chicago Bears could get in a trade down scenario in the 2024 NFL Draft, and why this guy would be so special if he's added to the Chicago Bears offense. And today is a very special episode because it's going to be just about one wide receiver in the 2024 NFL Draft that I absolutely fell in love with after finally getting to him, because it actually took me a while this year to get through a tons of players because it was just a lot of stuff going around, so it took me a little bit longer this entire draft process, and I'm still digging deep into a couple of prospects, and I'm nowhere near finished with all the guys that I actually want to go through. But today, as I said, will be about one specific player that absolutely caught my eye as I finally got to him, and it's a player I also talked about in my last mock draft, and it's going to be all about Xavier Legette today. Xavier Legette is a very special player that could be available for the Chicago Bears in potentially a trade down scenario where the Chicago Bears acquire a early second round pick. That's where that range could still be for Xavier Legette. Now, is he a player that could easily go in the first round as well? Sure. I mean, in my opinion, he could go in the 20s if a team really likes him, but he's also a player that could fall in the second round and be there early to mid-second round if the Chicago Bears are lucky. And I think it just all depends on what teams like in those wide receivers, because let's be honest, guys, this is such a deep wide receiver class. It's insane. There's so many different flavors that you can pick from. So Xavier Legette is one of those guys, and if the Bears are lucky enough to even get into a position to actually get him, and if they're also not going with Rome Odunze or Malik Neighbors early on in the first round as well, that's also playing a role in that scenario too. But I mean, as I said, if the Bears are lucky enough to be in a position to get Xavier Legette, he would be one of my favorite options to actually pick from. Now, are there other options that will be intriguing in the early second round at wide receiver? Yeah, sure. I mean, Adonai Mitchell, if he falls, he's an absolute banger of a player. Keon Coleman would be an option, but I mean, today I want to focus on Xavier Legette, give you a draft profile of what he can do well, what he does so well, and what type of a player he is, because he's a really fun player to watch and just was so impressive on tape, and as I said, became one of my favorite players in this year's draft class easily. Now, with that being said, let's actually get into it and talk about the pros of his game. What makes him so intriguing, and why would he be such a great player for the Chicago Bears? And starting it off, I need to categorize it a little bit, for me at least, while talking about him, because there's so many great things that he actually does. So let's actually start off with the most simple and obvious thing. When you watch tape, when you see the statistics, and it's actually his athletic and physical ability. I mean, this guy is 6'1", 221 pounds, runs a 4.39 40-yard dash, and on tape you see that speed, that physicality that's just very much special about him. I mean, he's just not a big wide receiver that's a little more skinny. No, he's a jacked up dude. He looks like an absolute monster out there, and he plays like it as well. Talking about physicality in his game, he really knows how to set up certain routes and control his body to be in a superior position. What I love about him, he's very strong at a release point. He's not getting pushed off. He's not getting pressed. He's very strong at the top of the route. He will stack his body against another man and just dominate a rep and just push him away, or just be stronger and not be moved. And also when he's running deep routes, what I absolutely love about him, he's easily restacking on deep routes. If he's getting actually pressed or just out of his route, out of his way, he's just going to restack so easily and readjust, and it's just going to be back in his lane fighting for that leverage. And that's also a great thing. He's playing with leverage, right? He understands how to play with leverage, how to use his defensive opponent's position to his advantage and to set up certain things, and that physicality helps a lot because he's not getting moved off of his route. He's keeping that inside shoulder and just going to be stronger and not being moved on deep routes, and then he's going to also have that great eyes that he has to track those deep balls. But that physicality is a huge part of his game that really stands out on tape. Now, another thing that was really impressive and just one of his biggest traits and strengths on tape, as I already teased a little bit, his eyes and hands. I mean, he has really good, as if not one of the top 5 in this draft class, hand-eye coordinations. I mean, he has no problem tracking a football and just locating it whenever it's getting lost or just really difficult to track for other guys. He gets it done. He knows where the football is, he locates it, and just definitely hauls it in. That's also another aspect, his physicality and athletic ability. He can jump up and just get the football, like he locates it, but he will also stretch his arms, fully extends, and just haul in that football. He has great hands, very physical at the point of attack, and just does a great job in that aspect as well. And then what I also really like in that aspect is he's going to catch with his hands. He's not a body catcher. He goes up and gets the football with, as I said, extended arms and really just smoothly catches the football. He's not on the same level as Rome Odunze, I would say, in that aspect. I mean, no other player is in that draft class. He's a very special player, but I mean, Xavier Legette is right there with the most talented pass catchers in this year's draft class, especially if we're talking about jump balls and just going up man against man and catching that football and just getting that ball and just winning a one-on-one. So that's really great and will be such a great addition to the Chicago Bears from that aspect. And then what a lot of people probably criticize or do criticize with him and say is probably a weakness is his route running. Because he's a bigger and more physical guy, he's not as agile. And what I'm saying is, I think his route running is even super underrated. Now, is he perfect as a route runner? No, he's definitely not, and there's still room for improvement, and that can be definitely listed as something where he needs to be more consistent in. But what you do see on tape is, first and foremost, really good hip drop, especially if we're talking curl routes, hitches, where you need to stop on a dime, have really quick footwork, and then off of that plant foot, transfer your weight, push that off, and getting back to the quarterback. And he does that so well. He snaps down so quickly with his hips, and then has really good footwork on those routes. I really like that. And then he also showed at certain times his understanding for setting up routes. There's several examples where he actually attacks outside of the frame of the cornerback, sells a fade route, actually works back inside, makes him flip his hips, and at that point he won that route already. And then he's for sure going to catch that ball because he has great hands. And then as a yak threat, he's a very physical player that can make something happen after the catch as well. So if he just gets more consistent with his route running and just shows what he showed at certain points consistently, I think he's going to be a complete wide receiver that you just want on your football team. And he's going to be with Keenan Allen if he actually lands on the Bears. Obviously, he's going to be with Keenan Allen, who is a top 5 route runner in the NFL right now easily, and a top 10 wide receiver in my opinion in the league easily as well. So he's going to have one of the best mentors in the entire NFL to actually learn from a route running standpoint. And then also DJ Moore, who offers so many things as well for him as a mentor and just a guy to learn from. So he's going to be in a great situation to actually work on his craft. So that's super exciting for me as just a football fan, but also a guy that just loves wide receivers and the position that you can have at that position. So I think Xavier Legette from a route running standpoint can also be much better. And then also talking versatility as the last point. He's a guy that played in a very pro style type of offense at South Carolina. He got a lot of great looks and was also moved a lot as a wide receiver. He played in the slot as a big slot, played outside wide receiver, got a couple of reps on just H-Jets where he actually got the football and just ran with it as a ball carrier. He's got used in multiple ways, which is super exciting for me as a Bears fan too personally, because we got Keenan Allen, we got DJ Moore, who are both players that have inside and outside versatility. So adding a third guy gives you so much potential on offense for Shane Waldron and his offensive coaching staff. It's going to be just very much amazing. And I think with Xavier Legette, you got a player that is going to be an impact player right away early on in his career, can learn even more, and could easily become one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. He is that talented, no kidding. but there's obviously also things that he needs to work on. One weakness that you could point out, which I'm not the biggest fan of, is first of all his production. I mean, he was only really productive for one season. Now, there's going more into that than just playing. There's a couple of things that happen in the background. He has had a really tough background story, so he's thought through a lot of adversity, which is actually pretty good in my opinion. But I mean, come on, guys. He played in the SEC, the toughest conference there is, and just absolutely dominated. I don't have a lot of worries that he's not going to be producing in the NFL like he did in college. I mean, if he gets in there in the league and just learns from those coaches and other wide receivers in that wide receiver room, he's going to be fine. So that's not a big issue for me. And the other thing I already mentioned is a little bit of route running. As I said, I think he's an underrated route runner, but he could be a little bit more consistent. But as I said, as he gets into the league, he's going to work on those things. It's all about precision in the NFL, and he's going to take that on and just be a really, really good wide receiver moving forward. I'm really confident in that. So, I mean, overall, what more can I say? Xavier Legette is an absolute beast. I love this guy. I want him on the Bears, and if the Bears actually get a chance to pick him in the second round, maybe get an early second round pick through a trade, just like I did in my last mock draft, I would be so happy. I mean, he's a great player, one of the most exciting players I got to see on tape this year, and just go check him out. He's going to be a great player, and yeah, I think that's the end of the episode, guys. There's not much more I want to say. Definitely let me know in the comments down below what you think of Xavier Legette as a player. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram and Twitter if you want to as well. And as always, guys, bear down.